All right. Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to the Limb Preservation Foundation webinar about empowered recovery. We look forward to a great evening with you and sharing a lot of valuable information and giving you an opportunity to ask all of your questions. So I'm just going to give another few seconds for people to get settled. All right, so it is 6:31, so we are going to get started. We are very pleased to host this webinar this evening and to welcome Guy Lev, Kayla Inman, Rustin Hughes, and Dr. Danielle Melton. We would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors, UC Health and Evergreen. And we would also like to give our sincere thanks to our board members, volunteers, and our dedicated staff for their hard work every day. We appreciate you. You did hear that we have a $50 Amazon gift card. That gift card will go to anyone who completes a survey. We will make a random drawing after this event is over, and that winner will be notified by the LPF staff. And again, please complete that survey. You will have an opportunity to see a QR code at the end, and we're also going to send it to everyone. So if you know anyone who could benefit from this program and they're not able to join us this evening, please know that we will be posting it on our website in the Learning Lab. So we are going to kick off the program, and it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce our moderator, Guy Lev. Guy is a physical therapist, and he is focused on amputee care. He leads the osseointegration therapy program and is a member of the UC Health Limb Restoration Program. We are really pleased that Guy serves on the board of directors for the Limb Preservation Foundation. He lectures regularly on amputee care at Regis University and the University of Colorado Physical Therapy Program. So please join me in welcoming our knowledgeable and well-respected moderator, Dr. Guy Lev.
Thank you, Marcy. That's a very kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Guy Lev. I'll be moderating tonight's panel. So a little bit of housekeeping. Our panelists will each present for 15 minutes, and we will leave 10 minutes for Q&A at the end of the session. Please share your questions with using that Q&A button. You can see it on your screen on the slide. And then we'll make sure to cover them at the conclusion of the sessions. So I'm really excited here to introduce our panelists for the evening. We have Kayla Inman, Rustin Hughes, and Dr. Danielle Melton. And I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Kayla Inman. Kayla is a TEDx speaker. She's an adaptive athlete and a support group founder. Kayla's determination and perseverance have led her to take on challenges, both physical and mental, and emerge stronger with each one. Kayla, please take it away.
Thank you, Guy. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'm very excited to be a part of this program. I am excited to share a little bit about my journey with limb loss and how movement has helped me. And excited to share with Rustin and Dr. Melton their experiences as well. So a little bit about my background is I battled limb salvage surgeries and CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome, for over half of a decade. I ended up having to lose my limb due to the CRPS just a little over 3 years ago. And during that battle with all of those, I ended up losing most of my mobility and was bedbound for quite a bit of time during it all. And one of the things that I didn't realize at the time was how movement can actually help all of your body, not just your physical well-being. So I wanted to touch a little bit about how movement has impacted me. So first of all, movement helps your physical health, which most people are going to understand, but it's those little movements that help as well, not just, running and weightlifting and doing those crazy gym things. Um, I share a video here of my very early days in recovery after my amputation, doing yoga because that was the only thing I could do. I couldn't walk. I couldn't really move my body more than just a little bit of yoga. And that was something that was really empowering for my physical well-being, just because I could get up, I could move from my couch to the floor, and that was it. And during all this time, you when you're down on the bed and you're just, trying to regain strength after being sedentary for so long, it can feel kind of defeating when, you know, you see these amazing athletes, they lose limbs and they're running marathons every day. It feels like they started that journey just right there. Um, but a lot of us struggle with that movement at the very beginning of our journey just because, we had a lot of complications leading up to this. Um, the very first couple of months that I had my prosthetic, I went back to the gym and all I learned was to sit and stand. And during this time of increasing my physical well-being and getting stronger and learning how to balance and all of those physical aspects of things, I did notice that my mental health did improve. One of the most empowering things that you can do after limb loss is take that first step. And it took me a long time to take those first steps. So it felt discouraging at those times. But being able to incorporate those tiny movements of yoga or going to the gym, learning how to sit and stand was really impactful for me. By the time I got to walking and taking those first steps, I was excited and I was able to feel the gratitude of being able to take those first steps again. I spent quite a bit of time doing 5Ks, and I joke about doing 5Ks because it took me a whole week to do my first 5K. I walked maybe a dozen steps here and there, but I was able to do that. Um, And while you're learning how to navigate your limb loss or your limb salvage surgeries and your new life after all of this, you're going to have to learn how to adapt to what you love. And so the on the previous slide, you can see I was in a wheelchair and I was able to do a dog sport with my dog. And so, having that opportunity to use all those different mobility aids, you'll be able to adapt to there. We can go to the next slide now. So adapting your passions. When I was going through all of this and I was learning how to walk again and doing all these things, I really wanted to get back to what I loved doing all before I spent those 6, 7 years on bed rest, essentially. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was running. And so, how do you get back to running after a limb loss? How do you get back to skiing after a limb loss? How do you get back to doing the sports or the movements or the hobbies that you used to do while you're going through all of this? And one of those things was, you know, finding those connections in your community. Um, the very first or the very picture on the very bottom left was the first time I ever got to go back skiing after I lost my leg. And it's such an empowering thing when you have the right tools to go back to doing what you really truly love doing. I spent an entire day with an organization who helped show me different tools I could use and different methods, how to get on and off the ski lift again. Um, and so it was a really empowering thing to know that there are ways that you can go back to doing what you love, just in a slightly different way. And there's so many different activities you can do, regardless of your sports level or your passions out there. The excuse me, the getting back to running was a challenge too, because we're expected to get up and just start running again, as you're starting your journey, but you have to start slow. And it took me a solid year and a half before I could even run a little bit. Um, but once you get the right tools like a running blade, you're able to navigate that world a little bit easier. There's other activities as well, such as sitting volleyball. I have a little picture at the bottom there. That is also another great way to get back moving, just because it's a sport that kind of equalizes the playing field because you have to sit on the ground. So regardless of your amputation level, you're sitting on the ground with your teammates, and able to do that sport together. I didn't understand at the beginning what adapting movements meant for me, just because we, as people in the limb loss community, we get shoved like, here, go to the Paralympics or go do this, and you're going to be amazing. But even just those little things, like being able to put my prosthetic on and do yoga again, was something that was an adaptation for me, because I had done that yoga moves before just without my prosthetic. So being able to try different things. And you can go to the next slide. So the last thing I'm going to kick off with is get involved, because a lot of what I've learned over the last few years of the adapting your life to your new life to how you want to move, is getting involved with these accessible organizations. And we have quite a few here in Colorado alone. So you can either join as a participant to start, which I did with Colorado Discoverability. They're actually the organization that helped me ski first. You can join to be a board member if you feel that your voice is more of your passion than moving in a sports-like way. Or if you really enjoy the sports, become an instructor for your favorite adaptive sport. In Colorado alone, the 3 organizations that I get heavily involved in is Colorado Discoverability. I started off as a participant. I went to being a ski instructor, and now I'm part of their board of directors. And Achilles is a wonderful organization that's over on the Front Range in Colorado. And regardless if you walk, run, or roll, they have people there to help you reach any goal that you have. And then we also do have the Colorado Rapids amputee soccer team that is fairly new to the last year. And they practice at the Dick's Sporting Field roughly once a month. So it's a wonderful place to be. You can find your community of people that are like-minded with you and have similar goals with you, and can get up and moving again. So thank you so much. And I'll take any questions that you have now.
Thank you so much, Kayla. That was really insightful. We appreciate you. We'll do the Q&A portion at the end, and I'm sure questions will come up in regards to everything you just talked about. But next I want to introduce Rustin Hughes. So Rustin is a veteran, a para jiu-jitsu champion, and a coach. Recognizing the power of sports and exercise in healing oneself, Rustin shares a sense of hope and determination with individuals battling their own adversity. Take it away, Rustin.
Thank you, Guy. First off, I'd like to thank the Limb Preservation Foundation for giving me this opportunity to speak today. Again, my name is Rustin Hughes. I'm the president of Be Bold, and we help people of all abilities through martial arts. I was introduced to martial arts in 2006 from a friend who took me to his MMA gym. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with everything, the jiu-jitsu, the boxing, the Muay Thai. At that time, my wife was battling brain cancer, and I found that it was a good way to vent out frustration in a positive way. Fast forward to June of 2014, doctors found a massive blood clot in the artery of my right leg, which led to below the knee amputation, August 21st, 2014. And then 3 weeks later, due to an infection, I became an above the knee amputee. At that time, I was very depressed, devastated. I could not believe I had just gone through 2 amputations in 3 weeks. I had just lost my wife in July of 2012 from the cancer, and then I found myself in the hospital with, as an above the knee amputee. I think that my adaptive sports journey started honestly out of boredom. I was at the old VA hospital and didn't have that many people that were coming to see me at the hospital. I'm from Fort Collins, and being down in Denver, I wasn't able to get a lot of people that would come and visit me. So I started riding my wheelchair up and down the halls, and I was timing myself, and I was seeing how fast that I could go. And then I started going outside and going different routes and timing myself and just seeing how fast that I could go. Once I got out of the hospital, I started training for a 5K. I got the Map My Ride app and put it on my phone, and took my wheelchair out on the bike trails, and I started training for my first 5K. I enjoyed it. I did my second 5K. Then I trained for a 10K, which was definitely a little more challenging. But I found that it got me out of the house. It was my right leg that I lost, so I didn't have hand controls for my vehicle. And so basically my wheelchair was my way of getting around. And then I trained for a half marathon. I challenged myself and trained for a half marathon, which was really cool. Is I got this thing called a free wheel, and you can kind of see that on the front of my wheelchair. It makes your wheelchair a three-wheeler. And I did the rock and roll marathon, half marathon, and I was so excited. And then I met a veteran who introduced me to recumbent cycles. And I found that the VA would give veterans that qualify a recumbent cycle. And I found that the hand cycle was the better fit for me. Dustin and I started riding around Fort Collins. We did 10 miles, then 25 miles, 50 miles. And I just couldn't believe that I was going these distances on a hand cycle. And then we did our first century ride back in Nebraska. We went 100 miles. And then Dustin and I had planned a ride from Fort Collins to Omaha, Nebraska, which was 600 miles. We did that ride in 6 days of riding. We rode for 3 days and then took a day break, and then rode another 3 days. We had multiple century rides in that, which was just, it was just an amazing, amazing ride. Right after that, after doing the ride, I called my friend Ryan Schultz, who owns the gym, MMA gym in Fort Collins. And again, I didn't have my hand controls, so I could only go as far as my legs would take me. And I asked him if he could pick me up, and he would bring me to the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would practice boxing while he was coaching classes. I was a southpaw before, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to, lead with my prosthetic leg, or how I was going to do that. Sometimes I didn't have my prosthetic leg, so I was in a wheelchair. And I just found that these exercises, boxing again, was not only physically positive, but it was mentally positive for me. Again, going back, I think it's a good way to vent out frustration in a positive way and in a positive environment. Realizing that how beneficial that it was physically and mentally, I started Be Bold Adaptive Boxing, where we bring in people again of all abilities. We have had pretty much every single ability you could think of in our gym boxing, going through mixed martial arts workouts, and it's just it's an amazing. We're resilient creatures. After boxing for a while, I asked my coach if I could get into jiu-jitsu again, and he had told me that I should take my disadvantages and make them my advantages. And this light bulb had gone off, and I was finding ways to get into different positions and submissions that no one had ever been into before, because they've never grappled with a guy with one leg. And it was just this awesome therapy again, just being in the gym, being around a community of like-minded individuals. I started training for my first grappling tournament, where I took 3rd place, and I was so excited. I had a submission, I had a 13-second submission in there, and I was just, I was so excited that I was able to, get back into the activities that I really loved. Shortly after that first tournament that I did, I got a call from a guy named Ronald Mann, and he had just got back from Abu Dhabi, and he competed in the in the World Para Jiu-Jitsu Championships, and he wanted to form a United States Para Jiu-Jitsu team. And we all met up in Los Angeles, and I got to meet other adaptive grapplers, other adaptive athletes. And it really, I was so excited to meet other like-minded people that had gone through different adversities, and how, that we were using martial arts as this form of therapy. After LA, I went to London, England, and competed, and went to Malmö, Sweden, and completed on a United States Para Jiu-Jitsu team. Last year, I competed in Saudi Arabia at the World Combat Games, where I took 2nd place, and then flew on over to Abu Dhabi for the World Para Jiu-Jitsu Championships, where I took the gold. This last September, I received my black belt, and I believe I am the first above the knee amputee to go from white belt to black belt in the United States, which is awesome. And it's kind of crazy to think that there's still things that need to be pioneered in 2024. And recently, at the end of September, I went to Dallas and competed in my first para competition as a black belt, where I took the gold. I'm getting ready to go to Abu Dhabi again. I leave November 3rd, and I will be competing November 7th in Abu Dhabi. And I was thinking to myself, like, if I could go back in time and talk to myself 10 years ago, these are the things that I think that I would, say to myself, where, start small with your physical activities and gradually challenge yourself, for bigger things. Ask advice from others, because a lot of the times, it's hard because, you need other people's support. Pick your hard. I think that it's hard to go to the gym, and it's hard to do the workouts, but it's also hard to be depressed. It's hard to sit on the couch. It's hard to seclude yourself. Seeking opportunities to be there for others. Doing things that showing people that what can possibly be done. It took me, to see another amputee do some activities before I knew, like, it was CrossFit, and there was an above the knee amputee doing CrossFit, and I went to his CrossFit event, and I did all the stuff for the CrossFit, and I realized that I didn't really like CrossFit that much. But if I could do the CrossFit, I could do pretty much anything because the activities were really hard. Um, and I think too, it's everything's going to be okay. If I could go back and talk to myself, everything is going to be fine. You're going through this really scary time, and you don't really know what your future has for you, but everything's going to be okay. Um, and you are going to have some tough days. There are going to be tough days, but tough days usually led to good days. And don't be afraid to try new things. There is a world of adaptive sports that's out there that it's amazing to see all the different adaptive foundations that are out there for adaptive sports. I think that another thing I would tell myself is that you're going to meet some really great people and do some really amazing things. And there's times I look at going through my amputation as almost like this blessing in disguise, because if I wouldn't have gone through my amputation, I wouldn't have met these people, or I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of these things. Some of the things that I've learned since I lost my leg is the only disability in life is a bad attitude. And I truly believe that I was more disabled with 2 legs than I am with 1. So thank you for your time.
Wow, Rustin, thank you so much. That was very inspiring, and also I think very poignant. So now we have Dr. Danielle Melton up. So Dr. Melton is a physiatrist and a professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, where she specializes in the rehabilitation of orthopedic trauma and the non-surgical management of patients with limb preservation and amputation. She serves on the board of directors for the Amputee Coalition and Catapult, organizations that focus on advocacy for people with limb loss and return to sports, such as providing recreational prosthetic devices. Dr. Melton, please take it away.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. And I said from the beginning when I was asked to join this panel that I'm happy to join, but this is going to be a very small part for this webinar. And I will share my perspective as a treating physician for people with limb loss. But I have to just say I'm so impressed with Kayla and with Rustin, and I'm really honored to be part of this with them, and really just so inspired. And so I'm sure that everybody that just listened to them is as well. You can go to the next slide. So one of the things that, and I've been practicing in this field for close to 20 years. I spent the first 18 in Houston, and I've been here in Colorado for the last 2 years. And one of the things that I was so excited about and really also honored to be somewhat part of is this bill that was first passed in Colorado, and it's so everybody can move. It actually started out as so Coloradans can move, and so you'll see a lot of people in that photo. If you can go back one, in that photo, you see David Ortiz, who's one of our congressmen. Right behind him is Jeff Kane, who is actually a bilateral amputee and a family physician. And right next to him is our social worker at UC Health, who has been instrumental in kind of getting this passed. Now you can go to the next one. The really exciting thing is this is now taken on, sort of a thing of its own, where it has gone nationwide. And it is now so everybody can move, not just Colorado, and every state is trying to pass a similar law. So let me just say that this is what it is trying to say that insurance companies need to require an additional prosthesis as a recreational prosthesis, so that amputees can get back into doing some of the things that they really would like to do. If you're interested in this and getting in and supporting, and if you're joining this webinar but you don't live in Colorado, You can go to this interactive map and you can just Google So Everybody Can Move, and it tells you where in the process all these states are. The other reason, and I'm really super honored because that is Patrick Pesgrove. And when I practiced in Texas, I was his doctor. And I actually wrote the prescription for his running legs there. So he's become the voice or the face of So Everybody Can Move. And I'm just really excited to be a part of that. And then I have subsequently have some other connections with this. Is you can go to the next slide. I was recently asked to join the board of directors for the Amputee Coalition, and the Amputee Coalition is now taking on this advocacy initiative to really implement this across all states. And so that's been really exciting. I've also, for many years, well, I say many years, I think since 2016, I've been involved with Catapult, which is a non-profit organization. Started in Houston, but I think it does have a reach nationwide. And the idea is that this organization raises money to provide funds to get athletes to return to sport. And so if it means that an amputee needs a running leg and their insurance company doesn't cover it, then you can go to this organization and submit for their grant program, and they'll provide that. So that's been really exciting. Mark Barr is also a patient of mine from Houston. He just recently competed in the Paralympics in Paris and took home the bronze for the triathlon. And then I also, I know Rustin mentioned that he really likes hand cycles. That was a great option for many of my patients that would do the Houston Marathon on a hand cycle. And Achilles International was the group that really provided them the ability to have access to the hand cycles. And so that's an organization that you might want to check out. I noticed that Kayla does the Achilles International for Colorado. Next. Adaptive Adventures is another organization that since moving to Colorado, I've gotten involved with, and they have done some great things for our patients. A couple of my patients are also on the board there. So whether you want to do drag up racing or adaptive skiing, and they have all kinds of different options that they allow people to participate in and really provide them the ability to do that. So that's another organization that you may want to check out next. And then there's Challenged Athletes Foundation. This is such a cute little kid. He was one of the last patients I took care of in Houston. He was provided prosthetic devices. I know that's a good option for a lot of patients nationally. And there's a grant program for that as well. So you may want to check out that next. And so, as just I guess I'll talk a little bit about the medical aspect of this. And I was really kind of intrigued when I was asked to participate. And there's really not a lot of information out there on how amputees are supposed to return to sport and how, as a physician, I'm supposed to oversee that to do that in a safe manner. So these were the, when you do a PubMed review or a search, this is the three most recent ones that I could find that were most applicable. And so, I think the real thing for most of us is that, and I heard Rustin say this too, we are sort of at a precipice at this point where we have an opportunity to really kind of develop this field further and really understand what we need to do to encourage patients to be able to reach their goals. And so as a physician who is involved in this, that's where I kind of focus on this next. And so I'm not quoting myself, but, I really do view my role in this as really trying to help my patients reach their goals. But it's my responsibility to make sure they do it in the safest way possible. And so, I may not have all the answers, but we'll certainly try to work towards doing that. And And that's really all I think I have to say on this, but I'm happy to open it up to any questions. Turn it back to you, Guy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Melton. That was really, really informative and tons of good resources. And thank you again, Kayla and Rustin, for sharing your expertise and your experience. So now we're going to move to the Q&A portion of our presentation. I already have several questions in the Q&A, but if other things have come up throughout this presentation, please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type it in there, and I'll make sure to present that to our panelists. So I'll just start off with some of the questions that have come up. And I'm opening this up to any of the panelists. One of the questions was, why don't people use running blades for everyday use? Why is it only for running? Perhaps Dr. Melton or Kayla.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you from my perspective. I think it depends on what foot goes on the prosthesis. So if it's one that goes inside a shoe, and you can walk with it as well as run, then I think it's reasonable to use as your everyday. Now, some of the blades have, they're like a circle. And so for some people, they can't get in inside pants. So that may be a limitation for people who want to go to work and wear, dress pants. That would be a challenge to do over a running blade. And then, of course, the running blades that are on tracks that don't have a shoe are the ones that people run out in, like, on the, what am I saying? That, like, out in the road terrain, trail running is what I was trying to say. That would be one that, don't wear a shoe. So you probably wouldn't want it for your everyday one. One of the challenges as a treating physician that I found is that insurance companies often only cover one prosthesis. So unless you've been an amputee for a long time and you've had an opportunity to get multiple prostheses, you probably don't want to start with a running blade. You probably want to start with one that you can, start just kind of walking, learning to do that, using it on a daily basis, and then progress to something that's more maybe activity specific or more, able to have that sort of capabilities with the different types of feet.
I'm going to add on a little bit there, Dr. Melton. So part of it, when you are getting those feet and you are working on it, a lot of those feet don't have a lot of that energy return. And when you're getting your everyday leg, you're set so your hips and your knees are all aligned. When you get a running blade, most of the running blades actually have to have an inch or more of a differential. So your amputated leg is usually sitting higher than your other leg. So that way when you're running, you get that energy returns to your hips are the same. So you can't essentially walk in your running blade all day without throwing your hips out of whack. I have tried. It is not comfortable. But that is another huge component of not wearing your running blade all day because, you can't keep that balance in your hips. And once you throw one thing out, you're out of whack for the rest of it. So.
Thank you. One of our participants is asking, can you hike with a standard ankle, or do you need a separate specialized ankle for hiking? Kayla or Dr. Melton, or want to take this one as well?
Yeah. So it really depends on what your goals in the terrain is. I have a couple of different feet that I hike with. I have one that is a very fixed ankle that I'll use for trails that typically have more of a gradual incline or decline. If it's a trail that has loose sand or things like that, I'll throw on a different ankle that has a little bit more of an actual ankle to it, just to give me more stability. But you don't need a special foot for that. You can absolutely just use a regular everyday foot for that.
Yeah, and I don't know that I have anything additional to add to that. I think what I found is I think people have different preferences on the stiffness of the types of feet that they want to use. So much of what Kayla just hit on. And you may use, a certain foot for certain activities. You may use a different one for others. But if you're a brand new amputee, you won't know that yet. That's something you learn over time. I think there's different characteristics with different prosthetic feet and ankles. And so whether it's, the other thing I may want to add in there, I know hydraulic ankles or empowered ankles are sort of a newer option, but it may or may not be one that you want to consider out in kind of different terrain, depending on what the characteristics of that foot or ankle is. Some of them may not be waterproof. Some of them may, not work as well if they get a lot of dust or dirt inside them. Some of the feet may, there's different options.
Awesome, thank you. There's a question here about if somebody wanted a mentor to help them get on their way, where potentially does someone find a mentor, or what are some of those directions? Rustin, maybe you have some insights on that.
The Amputee Coalition has a peer support group that you can get a hold of an amputee that's in your area. I think it was 2 years after losing my leg, I went and became a peer support. And I think social media is a really good way to find other individuals out there that are doing whatever sport that you're interested in, and just contacting them. I feel that the majority of us adaptive athletes are very excited to share our information that we have and how the things that we've how we got to the certain point that we're at right now.
Does anybody else want to add to that one, or?
I just want to reiterate that social media is really great. Like Rustin said, is searching for what you want to do has been most of how I found it. And the Amputee Coalition, there's a lot of us that are certified peer visitors, and we're always happy to help however you can.
And I'm available if anyone wants to reach out for me to any question that they may have.
All right, thank you. There's a question here about a left foot pedal. Does a left foot pedal adaptation really work for driving in a vehicle? Kayla's saying yes.
I can say yes because I've had mine for probably 6 years now. I used mine before I lost my leg, because I couldn't use my right foot to begin with, and it was one of the first things that I actually got to do after my surgery was drive my car. It makes my life a whole lot easier. I have one that is really heavy, so I can pick it up and move it from car to car. But I know there's some that you can drill holes into your car and permanently put them in, but I really enjoy mine.
So I'll give you the answer that I give professionally on this, after having worked with adaptive driving organizations. When I first started practicing, we used to talk a lot about left foot accelerators. Some of the newer issues are that there's concern that, well, let me back up one. If you're a below knee amputee, you can use your prosthesis to drive on the right side. If you are an above knee amputee, the medical advice that we give now is that if you learned on your right leg, you probably should not learn on, you should not use number one, you cannot use a prosthesis above the knee to drive. And so many right above knee amputees will choose to use a left foot accelerator. I advise against that because I think it's not as safe in that your reaction time in the heat of the moment is probably not as good, and you might get confused. And so Department of Public Safety says that you have to return, you should, if you're using a prosthesis to drive on the right, so like a right below knee prosthesis, that you should have that restriction placed on your license. If you use a left foot accelerator, you don't technically have to do that, but again, I don't know that it's safe. Or it's not as safe as really doing hand controls.
Okay, thank you for that. One question is, in regards to everybody can move, where do people really learn about how they can get running blades or recreational prosthesis through that organization or through their insurer?
So that's a great question. And I wish I had the answers for you. What I'll tell you is that the Colorado, which is the first one that went into effect, or, it goes into effect, actually, it's not a past tense, it goes into effect in January. So I think we're all going to learn a lot about this. I will tell you up front, if you're Medicare or Medicaid, it's not applicable. It's really right now applicable for third-party insurances. Now, I think having been part of the amputee coalition for many years, as an advocate for that, I think the next step is to work with CMS, or Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, so that they have to follow suit. That's certainly the goal, but that's going to take some time. If you don't live in Colorado, so if you do live in Colorado, we're going to learn things as we go. And I think that we're going to be able to, submit for recreational prosthesis. And if we get denials from insurance, I think we'll figure that out, and we'll work towards doing that. If you're in a different state, you need to know where your state is in getting that passed and implemented. So I don't know if that's a good answer or the right answer, but that's where we are right now.
As a follow-up question, someone is asking if these types of recreational prostheses are expensive, if you had to go out and buy them on your own. I see a lot of head nodding yes.
So I can tell you from personal experience, I've spent several $1,000s on purchasing my first running blade outright because I didn't know that there was grants available. However, through the Challenge Athletes Foundation, I have gotten another grant, like running blade, for they covered the cost of that, which was really fantastic. And there are other organizations that can cover those recreational prosthetics in the meantime, or if you're not in Colorado, where the bill will be passed in the future.
And that's not to say that I haven't gotten, I mean, insurance does pay for prosthetic devices. And if I've certainly had many patients that have been approved through insurance for what I would consider a recreational leg. It's just a matter of being able to justify it. So if you just got one within probably a 3-year period, it's probably pretty challenging. Now, Rustin, I think you got a lot of your care through the VA. The VA will cover that. By the way, Dr. Noel So said to say hi. But anyway, so I think, there are some options for that. And it's really just working with your, treating physician, trying to work through medical necessity for a prosthetic device. And you have to, you might have to be creative in working with your prosthetist, your physician, and your insurance company.
One of our participants is asking, how can amputee athletes access specialized training or coaching? So maybe this is for Kayla and Rustin. How do you access some more specialty stuff?
Like for me, there really wasn't any adaptive jujitsu practitioners, so I've kind of developed my own way of doing things, and that's what has been kind of awesome about this, is that I don't really have to follow any of the rules that other people do, and I get to kind of make up my own way of doing stuff. Now, we're starting our United States Para Jiu-Jitsu team. And since I've gotten my black belt, I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go to Detroit to put on an adaptive clinic in Detroit. So that's one thing that we're trying to do now is we're actually going to be coaching the coaches, because a lot of the times a person with a different ability will come in and the coach doesn't know what to do with them. And unfortunately, a lot of times they get ignored and they stop coming in. And we've had a lot of adaptive grapplers tell us that they ran into certain situations like that. And I think our goal now is, finding the adaptive grapplers, but then also coaching the coaches on how to think outside of the box when you've got somebody that comes in with a different ability. And again, there's a lot of pioneering that needs to be done in adaptive sports. And that's honestly, like, I think that's awesome, because I never thought that I would be pioneering something in, 2024. And, our main goal right now is to get jujitsu in the Paralympics. There is no combat sports in the Paralympics except for judo, and that's only open for individuals with vision impairment. So I'm hoping 2032 is the goal, is to get jiu-jitsu into the Paralympics.
It's amazing. Yeah. Just to add on to Rustin's is, a lot of the smaller areas, like I'm in Western Colorado, there's not a lot for adaptive sports. There's adaptive skiing, but that's it. So all those other things, like you said, is finding stuff on YouTube and finding if you're going back to the gym, finding a trainer that's willing to work with you. I spent those first few months in the gym with a personal trainer who had never worked with an adaptive athlete before. So it was, how do we modify to hit the right muscles, because I couldn't do certain movements that were the same, that could work my quad the same way. So just working with finding that person that you can modify and learn together rather than just leaving and giving up.
It's a lot of trial and error, I think, too, and not getting discouraged with the error part, and just learning from it. And I think everything is a learning opportunity. And yeah, it was getting into jujitsu was really awesome, because I had a group of guys that they really helped me figure all this stuff out. And we've became really, really close from this whole process. And yeah, it was, just going through these trial and error and realizing that, a lot of times it was like, all right, we shouldn't do that. Like, that's probably what we shouldn't do. And that will lead you to the things that you should do. So yeah, it's, finding a good community and just working with each other.
And I saw somebody had mentioned on there the support group. I'll give a support group for UC Health, since they sponsored this, that Guy Lev runs. And so, that's a good place to start, just to try to get back into things. But, that's not necessarily focused on sports. I think with all of our different slides and different groups that we have been involved with, the feedback I've gotten from patients is that it does provide such a sense of community, and it really creates such it's like they probably never would have gotten involved with that sort of thing before. And I have some patients that that are actually more active, in better shape now after their amputation. Which is a real concern that I have for many of my patients, because you have many amputees have a tendency to be less active and gain weight and do all this, but there are a handful that get involved with these groups that have done just incredibly well and are such a inspiration for me and certainly the rest of my patients. So get involved. That's what I would recommend.
A question for Kayla. Looking back now, what would you have done to sort of maintain your activity level in that pre-amputation phase, or when you were going through all these surgeries you were describing before your amputation?
I don't know if I would do much differently because I couldn't. I physically was unable to do any movements without causing some serious life-threatening pain. And so I think the only thing I would do differently is, you know, do more meditations where you just lay on the ground and you are just feeling your body into the ground, and that's about it. I like Dr. Melton said, I was fairly okay and active before I fell and had all this health issues, but after my amputation, I've done a lot more physically because I don't have that pain that I was living with. Um, and during all that, when you're living with that chronic pain and that extreme life-threatening and limb-threatening illnesses, you know, there's not much you can do besides keep your mental health in check. And for me, that was what kept me going, because that little bit of hope of, you know, I'm gonna get through this day by day. Um, because when you feel like you're not going to get there, or you get told you're not gonna walk again, let alone run, or there's nothing more we can do, so we're passing you on to the next doctor, it can feel defeating, especially when you keep advocating for yourself all the time. I'm actually going through a below knee revision right now. I had 2 surgeries in the last 2 weeks, and, you know, it's back to finding those little movements that help, you know, even if it's just sitting up, moving your arms for a few minutes, stretching your body, just doing those things that help feel good to your mind and your body.
Thank you. We have time for this one last question, but I think it's important. A participant is asking, I got amputated in 2017 and I didn't get involved in any physical activity. Can I still do it now? Lots of good head nods.
I would say absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, the one thing, and I don't know your situation, but you know, knowing what, like if you have access to prosthetic devices that would allow you to be more mobile, or, you know, I actually see a question up here on swimming. If you have access to like aquatic therapy to begin with, it would be low impact. But start to kind of reiterate what I think Kayla had said, you know, you start slow, right? You start just, you know, one foot in front of the other, no pun intended, but it's like you have to take steps to get there. And knowing what you're capable, you know, you don't know what you're capable of now, especially if you've not been active for 8 years. But I think getting involved that way would be my recommendation.
Well, thank you, everyone. I also want to add that as I'm watching the chat, there's just so much great support for each other in the chat, and that's really inspiring to see. But I wanted to thank again Kayla, Rustin, Dr. Melton for sharing your expertise with all of us. We understand that facing a limb-threatening diagnosis can be incredibly frightening. The Limb Preservation Foundation is here to support you and your family with financial, emotional, and educational resources. If you'd like more information about our program, please reach out to Jillian and look at our site. We also invite you to join our 4th annual Limb Symposium. That's going to be on April 25th in 2025. This is in Golden, Colorado. And we've just added preliminary information on our website. And we'll be opening patient registration and awarding scholarships for qualifying patients starting in early 2025. If you're interested in speaking or have a topic to bring up, there's a link on our website to share those interests. We encourage you to get involved, whether as a volunteer or by attending our events. Speaking of which, there is a volunteer opportunity for a free breakfast, a volunteer breakfast on December 2nd from 9 to 11 a.m. at the Colorado Gives Foundation. That's at 5855 Wadsworth Bypass A, Arvada. That's a Google Map one. For more information, feel free to visit our website and contact any of our friendly staff members with questions. Lastly, don't forget to complete your survey, as it will make you eligible for a $50 Amazon gift card, and your chances are good, so do it. I wanted to thank everyone again. Thank our participants, thank our listeners, thank our sponsors, thank the Land Preservation Foundation, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.